My number 7 coming in is a guy from way back, but well, let's just say he was the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Is the Honky Tonk Man. Yes, he held it for a record amount of time, but the reason he held it for so long is because the guy generated heat, and every week that he went out, whether it was a live show, Saturday night's main event, people wanted to see him get beat. I mean, it was a long time. In the end, you know, they gave it to the Ultimate Warrior. I don't know what you think about that. Was he the right guy? Possibly. It might have put him, the first thing that really put him Warrior on the map. But he needed Honky Tonk Man to do that. And I know a lot of people probably think Honky Tonk Man, you know, whether you agree he was a great wrestler or an in-ring competitor, I don't think you can take anything away from that character. And he played it, lived it. And very, very easy to dislike back then, and pretty much everybody did want him beat. So he is my number 7. Your comments to the Honky Tonk Man coming in at 7.
It's a good pick, to be fair, and I'll give a spoiler away. He's not on my list. So, okay. You know, even to this day though, he still plays a good heel character. I mean, is it real? Is he just making these things up? I don't know. But if you look at any of his shoot interviews, you know, he's still got that heat on him. So, you know, he definitely was a credible heel. So I'm glad he made your list because, you know, like you said, he held that Intercontinental title for a long, long time. And as a heel, it is harder. I mean, back then it was easy for a babyface to hold a title, but it's difficult when you're a heel. You've got to get people to hate you every night, and he did a good job of that. So, yeah, good pick there.
Thank you.
And you know, my number 7, I kind of feel like he might be on your list. So, but you know, if it happens, it happens. But I'm just going to go out there and say my number 7, because he's not, well, he was a wrestler and then he went to commentary. Bobby Heenan. You know, how's that? I think like he's a great heel. I mean, even in the ring, you know, what they called him the Weasel for a reason. You just wanted to get your hands on him. You wanted to hit this guy, and many a times that's what happened to the poor guy. But yeah, his commentary work probably second to none. You know, I mean, I know JR's great, but you know, Bobby Heenan is the prototype. He's where everyone sort of bases their work from. And even today, if anyone wants to do heel commentary, they look to him and they think, you know, be funny and, you know, side with the bad guys. You know, that's the formula. And he sort of introduced that, and I kind of love that about the guy, you know, because he sort of told things how they were sometimes as well. Because sometimes, even though they're a heel, you know, they kind of have the right way of thinking, and he pointed that out when it was probably not popular too. Okay, my number 6, you know, a man who you could describe as a heel, but I'd probably describe him as evil, Kane. And I find him an interesting choice because to come across as a heel, you know, you can do despicable things, but this guy has done probably the most downright evil things within the WWE. From, you know, sort of forcing someone to marry them, sort of impregnating them against their will, you know, setting fire to a beloved commentator, all of these things. And, you know, feuding with your brother, you know, and getting the supernatural forces involved. You know, that's some substantial heel work there. So I'm going to tip my hat to Kane and say, you know, that guy, he has been the archetype kind of heel. You know, he's been amazing in his work, and the longevity of his career just is another talking point as well, because not many people can say they've done it consistently week in and week out like he has over that period of time.
Great pick. And another person that is not on my list, Kane does not make it on there, but yeah, he is. I mean, when he came in, it was a great debut at Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood, and very few. I mean, they probably didn't have it in mind that he would stick around as long as he did, but probably much like the Undertaker in a lot of ways. And yeah, from that storyline, it was one of those things where I think they thought, oh, I'll only go to WrestleMania 14, and then they'll probably like that'll be wrap that up and we'll move on. But no, he stayed. You know, as one of the most sort of, you know, he had like quite a different turn as well when he's like turned into the whole unmasking business with his face. Like, he developed a different side of his personality as well that we hadn't seen. And much like The Undertaker, he's quite good at reinventing himself. Albeit corporate Kane, not a big fan of that. But hats off to the guy. You know, he's made a name for himself now. He's in politics, so he must be a smart guy as well. And I know that he is for a fact. So Glenn Jacobs, well done. It's a good pick there for your number 6. So my number 6 now is going to none other than Edge, and he may well be on your list. But yeah, for me, Edge, just a phenomenal heel when he basically got the title. Basically, when he was with Lita, I think that was his best sort of run as the heel. I felt like people before that, he was trying to be a babyface, but it wasn't working because everybody kind of knew secretly about the whole Matt Hardy thing and Lita, and then WWE, to their credit, ran with that for a change. And yeah, I mean, I think they still hold like some crazy record for like a Raw segment as well when they did the live sex show. I believe that they got a lot of people talking when he cashed in Money in the Bank. But yeah, he done a lot of things. Like, he was the first guy that cashed that in and was quite ruthless about it, and took John Cena out right at the end after like a whole elimination chamber, which was very opportunistic. Was Edge, and I think really, I know that they tried to push him as a babyface many a times, but I think his natural go-to was definitely a heel, because he could really get some heat about him. Okay, so number 5. Okay, this is like a strange one, okay, because on paper, this guy, in WWE's eyes and everybody else's, he's not a heel. But to me, he generates heat and has done for a long time. And I've got to put it in there. I was debating whether I should do this, whether it kind of fits in with what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. Roman Reigns. I'm putting him in because this guy, when we talk about generate heat, whether he wishes to, whether WWE market him to be, regardless, this guy got so much heat when they tried to sort of shove him down our throats. And it wasn't just like once, it wasn't twice. We're talking years worth of heat when they tried to at first put him over. You've only got to go back to that Royal Rumble where everybody wanted Daniel Bryan to come out at the end, and poor old Rey Mysterio got booed. And Roman Reigns, even with his cousin The Rock coming out at the end, giving the little people's eyebrow to the people when he was lifting up his hand like this at the end, it was like, what the heck is happening? That for me, that cemented him as probably one of the sort of greatest heel-seeking like heat guys of all times. But of course, in WWE's eyes, that is never the case. They never wanted this. But I think if when I was putting this list together, I was thinking, crikey, who really does get people passionate, where they really have some crazy, like, fiery anger towards somebody? And Roman Reigns is definitely one of those guys. You know, whether it's his fault or not his fault, or his character, whatever it is, I just think he generates heat. So it's a little controversial one there, because, you know, he's not quote-unquote a heel, but that's my my go-to. Matt, your comments on that one?
It's a surprising one for me. Yeah, because I guess he does have a lot of haters out there, and I mean, the warmth for him is slowly, you know, building. You know, I mean, like, people have come around a little bit and maybe like him a little bit more than they used to. But you know, it is surprising because he's not specifically classed as a heel. But yeah, I can see, yeah, he does have that polarising effect that I haven't seen since John Cena. So, you know, maybe that's, you know, another passing of the torch there. You know, people didn't like John Cena even though they were supposed to, and, you know, that's the same for Roman Reigns now. But, you know, there is something about that guy. And whether he's a heel or whether he's a face or however you want to class him, I feel he does have that superstar appeal. So, you know, he's definitely deserving of making the list, because, you know, if they were to turn him heel, he would be nuclear heel. You know, he'd be incredible, and we can only ever hope, but it's not going to happen. So, you know, we've been talking about this for many years on the podcast and everything. So, you know, it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, Matt, you're number 5.
Ooh, my number 5 is... Ooh, let's talk about the cold, dead eyes of Jake the Snake. You know, maybe he's on your list. I mean, he's an incredible heel, to be sure. That guy... the way he delivered a promo with the sort of like methodical, calculated approach, and you know, he didn't have to get. This is a time when everyone was getting over enthusiastic, excited, and like loud in their promos, but he'd just tell you how it was, and you'd look into his eyes and you think, man, this guy's creepy as hell. What's going on here? He's actually telling me something and I'm believing it. I'm thinking this guy's going to come out and get me in my sleep or something. And he had many memorable feuds, and this guy, you know, he could have been on top if it wasn't for someone like Hulk Hogan, who was an incredible face at the time and such a massive draw for the company. Jake the Snake was more than qualified to carry the title, but it just never happened for the guy, unfortunately.
It's a great pick. He's not on my list, so I'm glad you put him there. He was on my draft as well. The reason he wasn't on my list is because for me growing up, I got sort of the back end of Jake Roberts when I was watching, where he was more of a baby face. So although he was pretty much still the same character, he was fighting for me instead of the other way around. So I saw him in a lot of feuds with like Rick Rude and stuff like that when I was growing up, and that was a really good thing with his wife was involved and stuff like that. But yeah, totally agree with what Matt said. The whole thing when he was around back then, similar to Honky Tonk Man, those promos were a lot of this, and I'm gonna get him, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do this, and their veins were popping out, and do you know what I mean? It was like, oh my god, they're gonna blow a gasket trying to do this. But Jake Roberts was one of the few that literally he could just, from the tone of his voice, just look at you with his eyes, and you know, just looked at you at home, sitting there in your chair. And be talking to you directly. I didn't feel like that with anybody else. Jake Roberts is arguably one of the best guys on the mic, and psychology-wise as well. If you watch him in the ring, I always talk about my kind of wrestling are people that use a scientific approach. You know, do things because it's kind of needs to be done, and not just like putting someone down in like a lock where they've been working on a different body part the entire match. Jake Roberts' matches always sort of made some sort of logical sense, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, it's a great pick there, well, Jake Roberts.
One more point I might like to add is that whole thing with Macho Man and you know, the snake biting his arm. You know, that's something a lot of people would never get that image out of their mind. So you know, there's not many people that have gone to that kind of extremes as a heel as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my number 4, going back to a previous pick of John's, is Edge. And I have to choose Edge because for a long time, you know, sort of early 2000s to sort of late 2000s, Edge was my favourite wrestler. This guy, he impressed me so much with his natural ability. And I liked him as a heel, but he just wasn't... something wasn't right. It wasn't connecting with the fans. And even though I liked him, even I felt like something just wasn't right. So when the whole real life scenario with Lita played out and it sort of played into the character a little bit more, suddenly the green light was given and he was full heel. And I thought his work from that point was just amazing. You know, it was like a switch was flipped and you know, he was given free range and he could just be who he was meant to be. And I feel like when I saw him win the WWE title for the first time and he beat John Cena, and I jumped out of my chair. I was counting along with that ref. You know, I was so glad he finally made it. He'd reached the top of the mountain, and from then it was just pure gold. Everything that he did, and a lot of people hated it, and you know, it's just confirmation that he was doing his job very right. And even though he got a lot of people to hate him, you know, when he retired so abruptly, and unfortunately, you know, people supported him. They realised that this guy was such an incredible worker, and his contribution to WWE was huge.
Cool. Well, I've already spoken about Edge, but I've got a question for you, Matt. Was you an Edge head? Yes. Is that what you're telling me? You was an Edge head back then? Well, I never known any Edge head until I've just met you.
I was.
So there you go. He did have a fan.
But that's because I was a fan of him in Edge and Christian when he was a heel before that. So I start when I'm a fan of someone, I tend to stick by them.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Loyalty over here. Okay, my number 4 now could definitely well be on your list. is none other than Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Triple H is in my list, and yeah, there's a few different incarnations of Triple H. Obviously, he's pretty much tried to be everyone at some point that he's endeared. Hunter Hearst Helmsley from the very beginning, very snob type character, very. I mean, the perfect heel to me is somebody that you just cannot ever get to like. Like, you might think someone's cool. A lot of heels now are quote unquote cool, and that's the problem with heels, because they're more cooler than the baby faces, and it's very difficult. But a heel back in that era was like somebody you just could not ever want to like, and Triple H played the whole snob thing really well. I loved the chemistry between him and China. I thought that was excellent under Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And then of course with the whole DX thing, followed up with the game promo, and yeah, I think 2000 rings a bell for me. He was like really disliked by most of the internet fans because people just wanted to see him out. They thought he was playing the politics game with Stephanie McMahon, and you just wanted to see him beat at every pay-per-view, and it made for good sort of drawing power, I think, for him. The feuds with Mick Foley, fantastic. Like, Foley played that role so well, like he did the year before with The Rock, but this time he had like somebody even more sadistic with Triple H. Very ruthless, and I think that's probably my best work for him, although he has done other things. Like Evolution was another one of those times where I think that was really good. But for me, I didn't really like Evolution as much as that Triple H from 2000, just because I felt like Evolution was a little bit of a copy of the old Four Horsemen, in my opinion. But I think his original stuff really was sort of around 2000, 2001 for me. This one kind of, for me, cements one of the greatest characters to ever play. Like, if you was given this role, you'd have a big smile on your face. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, goes in at number 3 for me. This guy, you go back and watch the videos of him, stuff he used to do with the kids. I love that video. I don't know where it's from, the whole basketball one where he's got that kid to like bounce it and then he just like chucks it out of his hand. That, when I listened to Bruce Pritchard's podcast and he was talking about this story, he said they legitimately got that kid up without telling him what was going to happen, and then only like backstage did they give this kid a load of merchandise to go home with, because he was crying, legitimately crying. They'll never do that now. They'll never do that now with a PG rating. But it was a fantastic character because this guy lived it 24/7. I've told this story so many times on our podcast that when Ted DiBiase came to sign with the WWE, Vince McMahon said, "Look, I got this great idea, but I cannot tell you what it is until you sign on the dotted line. It's so big, but I can't have you know it just in case." So Ted DiBiase signs, and then he said his life was changed because all of a sudden he was getting private jets, helicopters, first class everywhere. He was even given his own card, like with cash on it. And Vince McMahon used to say to him, "If you don't ever be in a restaurant and you can't pay your bill, because that is just going to ruin your character. So you always make sure you claim it back, and never travel around with the boys. Don't travel around in the coaches. You've got to turn up in the most class stuff." And for me, that was just, it was a real golden time, because you talk about like people staying in characters. Is he real? Is he not? Like, I think that was just played so immaculate. And again, yeah, Ted DiBiase's in-ring style, amazing. Go back to WrestleMania 4 and 5. Great work around that. The whole stuff with Virgil, fantastic as well. And yeah, I just think with that laugh, the way he was quite smuggish as well, I just think he's definitely one of the all-time best heels. Is he on your list?
He's not on my list, and I'm glad you picked him, because you know, I did consider him and he was on my mind for a while. But yeah, there's not many people that really throw themselves into a character as much as that. And when he used to ask people from the crowd to come in and do things for him, you know, these weren't plants, these were real people. He's coming out and giving them money and stuff. And, you know, that's great. You don't really see that this often these days, because you know, we all know now that there's plants in the crowd and they come out and they do what they're told to do. But to do it for real, actually see what people would do for money, it's quite funny actually to think that they'd even go there.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, over to you.
Yeah, my next one. Right, okay. So I'm going to say another one of my favourites for a very long time was none other than Y2J himself, Chris Jericho. And no matter what promotion you want to consider him under, we're talking about WWE here, but you can pick whatever you like these days, and he's an incredible heel wherever he goes. And the ability he has to reinvent himself, I know we see it in other wrestlers, but it's almost unparalleled with Jericho. He can just pick up the mic and almost be like a human dictionary, throwing words at you, and you hate him just because he thinks he's above you. Or he can go out there and just be throwing out the crudest jokes, and apparently that's works as well. So yeah, I definitely respect this guy. And again, much like I said about Kane beforehand, to have a career such as he has, and have that longevity, and actually be able to reinvent yourself so consistently, and actually still connect with the fans, it's incredible. And he's a great guy in the fact that he cares about the next generation of wrestling as well. It's not all about him. He gives a lot back to his opponents, and that's not a lot you can say about these days. I mean, a lot of people in the older generation want to sort of make things about them, and we see it a lot these days. I mean, it's very popular to come back as an older superstar, but Jericho, he still continues to give back to wrestling.
Your two.
Okay, my number two. I might say my favourite wrestler of all time, but he's been spoken about already, so it's going to be Triple H. And I feel like this guy, he is the best heel. Well, maybe not the best heel because he's my number two, but still, in between those ropes, getting things done, he's the best heel, because he is a guy who, you'd hate, because he'd come out there and say, I guarantee you that I'm going to get the job done. And he'd come out there and he'd do it. It's not like he's a coward who'd run away, even though there was that Scott Steiner feud I didn't like, and he was a coward and he ran away. But other than that, he came out there, he wasn't afraid of a fight, he'd get physical, he'd do street fights, cage matches, Hell in the Cells, anything, you would see him and he'd be willing to lay it all on the line to get the job done, and he did. And, his work with the McMahon family, all of that, integrating that, his personal life into his professional life was incredible. The whole thing about Stephanie McMahon and when they got married and that, I remember that so vividly. I was on the phone to one of my friends. I was like, are you watching this? Are you seeing what's happening? This is incredible. How can you do this? How can you get married to someone? And then later to be deceived and realise that it was all a plot, just those kind of storylines they come up with are incredible. And, Triple H has always been an integral part of all of that. Even when you look at Shawn Michaels as well, and you think, yeah, DX was great, and then everyone missed Shawn Michaels. He came back. We thought the DX reunion was on, and he just turned on him, pedigreeing his best friend, and then hitting him with a sledgehammer. He's done so many despicable things. He could not make my list.
It's a good pick there. So yeah, I've already spoke about Triple H, so I'm going to leave that one there. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. He's in your two. Okay, my number two. Probably coming out of, I doubt he's your number one. Let's put it that way. My number two, brother, is Hulk Hogan, the NWO, the Switch. There was something about that, and I remember watching it vividly. Like, it's in my memory to today, that pay-per-view, and when it happened at Bash at the Beach, and man, just the anger of everyone that this guy, for all these years, just suddenly threw it down your throat. And you look back then in '96, like all the stuff that was thrown in the ring, the promo that was cut after, the group that was formed, a lot of that. I know a lot of people, including like some of the guys that we saw in the Click this year, they felt like they kind of invented all that stuff. But without Hulk Hogan, I don't think it would have got as over as it possibly did. I think you had to have Hogan because he was such this aura of like, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, doing all these great things for kids, these Hulkamaniacs, and all of a sudden, all those kids that had followed him were probably in their teens or sort of younger adults. And then all of a sudden he just threw it down their throats, and the anger that came out of that was just like crazy. And I think his run as a heel is kind of underestimated a little bit for him, because he was able to kind of do things that we're not normally used to seeing Hogan do. I think he had quite a bit of fun with it. The whole, you know, blacking and stuff like that. I thought it was a really, really good move. The only thing you could probably put slightly close, although I don't even think it is, because he was very mixed reaction in his heyday, is John Cena. But he's always been presented as a babyface largely in his career. So if they suddenly went, John Cena's a heel, but I don't know that he would have got the emotion that Hogan got, because Hogan was loved by not just half of the crowd, like all the crowd pretty much for his career. So yeah, Hulk Hogan goes in at my number 2. Okay, my number 1. We're here. We are here. We don't know if we've got the same one. We possibly have, but very seldom does this happen.
There's only one massive person, like we're all like, what an arse, you know.
Well, I mean, there is and there isn't. I don't know, because I've come in from a kind of a different angle in terms of like talent in the ring and stuff like that. So I don't know. You might not have. You might have. I don't know.
I'm interested.
I've gone with none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I've gone Vince McMahon because purely, he's not really the most active guy in the ring. However, everyone says Stone Cold Steve Austin made the Attitude Era. Steve Austin was over everything. However, without a great antagonist, without a great figure to go against, I'm not sure that would have worked. And how many times have we seen WWE try and replicate this same scenario over and over and over, recycled crap as I call it, because they're trying to get back to that magical spot. But there is only one Vince McMahon, trust me. And in his heyday, coming out from that commentator's booth to being presented after the whole Bret Hart Montreal Screwjob, believe me, I was pissed at Vince McMahon. I wanted to find Vince McMahon, and I wanted to do exactly what Bret had been able to do to him, and that's literally lay him out with a punch. I was so angry about it, and when he came on and done that promo, that famous lines of Bret screwed Bret. Now you can look in the mirror and know he did that. That got me to a 10. And I was like, is this guy for real? And then of course, eventually we found out Mr. McMahon character was born. And he was amazing at coming out and just having fun with it as well. I think he had a lot of fun doing it. And I know a lot of people look at him and Steve Austin as like the big thing, which it was, but there are so many other great parts to Vince McMahon, the character that he was playing, that you could just really dislike this guy. But yeah, he can always get away with it because he's the boss for the most part. So it's like, who doesn't want to punch their boss out that's a complete idiot that you're working for in life? Like, come on, we've all had those visions. And Vince was the first guy to come along like that. Like, it had never really been done until Vince McMahon had done that. Like a real persona anyway, that also plays himself on screen. So that is my number 1. Over to you.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because he's my number 1 as well. I mean, this guy, how can you not hate this guy? Oh, what an incredible heel he was, you know. The things he's done. I said it about Triple H, you know, do the most despicable things, get people to hate you. This guy goes above and beyond all of that, you know, even to the rumours of storylines that he might have had on his mind. You know, there's some pretty outrageous things on that list. But yeah, you know, just to come out there and, you know, the feud with Stone Cold, amazing, you know, and probably the peak of the Attitude Era, which is what everyone's like, probably when they think about the best age in wrestling, that's what people go to. And Vince McMahon was on top as the top heel. It's incredible, you know, and to just reinvent your kind of yourself. He came in as the boss, and he wanted to do a bit of commentary work and stay anonymous, but when the time came, he stepped into a role and he put himself in front of the camera, which is, how many people can say they do that work on a TV show? They come out in front of the camera and then they're an incredible actor themselves and can actually pull off the most hated role. It's amazing. And you know, the things he does, even to his own wife, when you see Linda and she was in that catatonic state, and then when he had Stacey, and then, you know, these are just images that are permanently in people's minds, because it's just so outrageous, so incredible. And the Kiss My Ass Club, come on, you know, who didn't get annoyed with that? I mean, everyone's seen someone in that club they didn't want to see.
Yeah, I think Vince. I mean, leave your comments down below if you think there should be another #1. Leave your comments down below because I'd be interested to know. But for me, Vince McMahon, the character, the person, just rolls into one, and yeah, great lines. I want to mention, give out some shout outs that I was going to put in there. I had Roddy Piper, of course, from the early times around WrestleMania 1, 2. He was a guy that literally did not want to lay down for Hogan, and that's the reason he never got that really big payday in the title, because he didn't want to do those things. But Roddy back in the day was like the first off-the-cuff guy that could really cut good promos as a villain, as a heel. Was really big stuff back then, I thought. So I want to put him in there. Also, Shawn Michaels was another one that got close to coming on my list. Very obnoxious type guy. Very annoying character back in the day in the 90s. I really disliked him. The whole Heartbreak Kid. He could definitely push my buttons when it was coming to those things. And who else did I have? I even sort of put someone like... I believe Christian at one point as well, who would really like drive me nuts as Captain Charisma when he was doing that Tyson Tomko business.
You was a peep.
I was not a peep.
Criticised me for being an idiot. You're a peep.
Yeah, anyone that you were gonna?
Oh yeah, I mean Randy Orton for obvious reasons. Been his best work has been as a heel, so of course he came to list. And Batista. Give me what I want.
Give me what I want.
And with Rey Mysterio, you were supposed to be my friend. You know, he's hilarious as a heel. That's what got it for me. I was like, this guy, every time I've seen him, I quit. It just makes me laugh. So incredible heel work that he did. And of course, Ric Flair, but his best work was in WCW. So I kind of left him out because of that. But yeah, incredible heel in his own right in WCW. But in WWE, didn't have much in the role of a heel. He was more face for me in that.
So overall, myself and Matt, we pretty much had like different rundowns, I think, which was quite surprising because you think there's only a select few of heels, like the greatest ones. But yeah, don't forget, guys, leave your comments down below. I'd be interested to see who you come up with. Give us a list as well. Be really interested to see what you come up with there. And don't forget, if you want to check out more of our video contents, just go onto our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button.